Hey, what's going on, everybody? So coming into this season, the Packers, before the season starts, of course, before training camp comes in, we're thinking we're going to have Zadarius Smith on the outside, Preston Smith on the outside, as well as Rashan Gary on the outside. And in this past week, we were without both Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith. So two of our best pass rushers. We've been without Zadarius Smith for the majority of the season. And so the guy who really has had to step up, especially this, the majority of the season, with Zadarius Smith missing all these games, has been Rashan Gary. And if you guys have yet to subscribe, you want to see more Packers content, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel down below. And if we take a look back at this past week versus the Washington football team, with both Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith both missing the game, Rashan Gary actually had one of the best games, if not the best game of his entire career. And he did something in this game that he has never once done before. So if we take a look at his stats right here, as you can see, this is from PFF, basically all of his stats from the entire season. On the right side, you can see all of his pressures, 5 total pressures the first couple weeks. And as you can see, in this Week 7 game versus Washington, he had 10 pressures in this game. That is something he has never once in his career done, this being his third season. So in his first 2 seasons, he never once reached 10 pressures in one game. And the fact that he was able to do this against a Washington football team who, even though they may not have, one of the better teams in the NFL, coming into this game, they were the second graded pass blocking unit in the NFL. So he did it against one of the best pass blocking units in the NFL up to this point in the NFL season. So I think just to have a guy like Rashan Gary, who is, playing at his level, who is basically dominating almost each and every single week, it's really helps when we lose guys like Preston Smith as well as Zadarius Smith. So hopefully Preston Smith will be back coming into this next week for the Packers. Maybe Zadarius Smith comes back at some point this season. Who knows, though? He has that back injury, and there haven't really been any updates recently as to whether or not, he's going to be coming back later in the season. But Rashan Gary has just been balling out so far this season. I think partly that has to do with the fact that he's been playing a lot more snaps than he did the past couple seasons, just because with Zadarius Smith missing all the time he has missed, Rashan Gary, has had to play a lot more snaps. And if we take a look at his snaps in the past 2 seasons, so in 15 games in 2020, he averaged around 30.4 snaps per game. And then in 7 games this season, he's averaging about 45.2 snaps per game. So basically, his snaps have gone up 50%. So it makes sense that he's producing at a much higher level. Because the last couple seasons, of course, playing behind Zadarius Smith as well as Preston Smith. But this season, having a lot more snaps, for this Packers defense with all those injuries that have been going down. And if we do take a look at, how often he is getting pressures, he's a little better than last season, getting a pressure on every 9.05 plays, whereas last season he was getting a pressure on every 11.09 plays. So a little bit better in that category. So add the fact that he's doing better there, and then you add all the snaps that he's playing so far this season with injuries, that sort of has led to his dominant season so far. As you can see, 35 pressures in 7 games this season for the Green Bay Packers. So it's great to have a guy like Rashan Gary with all these injuries going down. And honestly, for this Packers defense, the fact that they were able to do what they did against that, Washington football team offensive line was just honestly incredible. If we take a look at all the pressures for the defense, let me see where it is right here. So Rashan Gary has 10 pressures in that game. Kenny Clark had 7 pressures in that game. Whitney Merciless actually had 4 pressures in that game. Even though he had no sacks, he did get 4 pressures. So that's pretty solid. The fact that he only played in 31 snaps, so about half the snaps of the for the defense, Whitney Merciless actually played, so he's able to get 4 pressures in that one. Dean Lowry, 3 pressures. Jonathan Garvin, 2 pressures. Kingsley Keke, 2 pressures. So honestly, I'm continuously surprised by how good this defense is doing, how good this defensive line has been doing with all the injuries that we've been suffering. Jair Alexander, Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Kevin King, all these injuries. We could go on and on. That seems to be the consistent theme so far this year for the Packers is, all these injuries. But the fact that this Packers team has been able to withstand all these injuries and be able to be 6-1 at this point in the season, I think sort of shows the kind of team that the Packers have right here. Because yes, maybe we haven't been getting tons of blowout wins where we did more so last season, but just the Packers' ability to deal with adversity so far this season, I think bodes well for them coming into the end of the season, coming to the playoffs, because hopefully we have lots of those guys who are injured back, at the end of this season. And if we do, obviously that's great. But if we do have any injuries, in the playoffs, we have guys who have had to come in here and consistently play with all the injuries we're dealing with. So in a way, we're giving our backups, we're giving these guys who maybe won't be playing as much later in the season, lots of reps right now. So maybe in the end, it ends up being a blessing in disguise for this Packers team. And one thing I do keep seeing in my comments is basically talking about the Packers Super Bowl run. Back in when they won it in 2011, that year, they suffered so many different kinds of injuries, and they were still able to pull out the Super Bowl. So maybe it's a blessing in disguise. Maybe the Packers will be able to use this, continue to move forward, hopefully get our players back. But I'm honestly liking what I'm seeing from this Packers team, as you guys probably are. It's hard to not like it when you're sitting at 6-1 at the top of the NFC North. So we'll see if the Packers can continue this streak. It's going to be tough coming up this Thursday. it already was going to be tough facing off a really, really talented, Arizona Cardinals team. But now being without Joe Barry, most likely Devontae as well, unless he gets 2 negative tests within, I think, a 24-hour period or, something like that. If he's probably not going to go, that's sort of what's going to happen. And hopefully no one else is going to be put on the COVID reserve list. So it's going to be a really tough task for this Packers team. So we'll see if they can pull off this win. Hopefully we'll get healthier soon and everyone will be back in no time. But that's going to be it for this one. Thank you guys for watching. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe if you guys want to see more Packers content. And I'll see you guys on the next video.